Hey guys, Steve here, Ponics. Today we're going to talk about
Growing with fishes. Growing with fishes.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Growing with Fishes, episode 311. We have one of our old co-hosts back with us today and a good friend of mine, Mr. Green Jeans, coming to us all the way from the West Coast. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Great to be here.
Oh, yeah, always fun. For those of you that don't know him, he invented a whole bunch of different strains and stuff like that, especially back in the late 70s and early 80s, and we're super stoked to have him back with us today. If you guys are new to the channel, be sure to hop over to apmjclass.com. We do have an aquaponic cannabis class Marty and I put together online. You can check it out. We have a huge range of different topics that we cover in the course, and you're not going to find anything even at the university level that comes even close to the amount of content that we have in this class. So definitely go ahead and check that out. And we also have pestclass.com as well. So you can check out the pest class. We have, again, a huge in-depth aquaponic and living soil pest control course as well. You can check that out at thepestclass.com. All righty. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Also, don't forget, we have our Wednesday show, Dat Smoke Show, every Wednesday on the YouTube channel, Dat Smoke Show. I will be working this weekend to get that up on the podcast platforms. I know it's been kind of dragging my feet on that, but I will have some time this week. So thanks a lot for joining us, Mr. Green Jeans. Do you want to introduce yourself to everybody? It's been quite a while since you've been on the show. I think almost 100 episodes or so since you've been on. It's been quite a while. So stoked to have you back.
Yeah, thanks. It doesn't seem like that long to me. I mean, I've been around here for a while. No, I mean, it does. I know I should have been here a while ago, but I guess, yeah, we already go a little ways back anyway. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a great, meeting you guys and getting involved with your show really, totally re-energized me. I mean, because I've always been, the cannabis genetics and stuff has never really been, business for me. Everything's never really been being a profitable thing. I guess you could say I've been a hobbyist, but yeah, since the mid 70s. I've still got genetics, of course, going back to then. So I guess I'm a little bit more than maybe a little bit more serious than a hobbyist. But as far as making a living by, I haven't done that too much. But that's because probably I had a lot of other ways and a lot of other things that I was fooling around with or doing at the same time. But yeah, meeting you guys, getting back involved, you're the ones that really turned me on to the idea of using cannabis as a medicine. And I know that's really seems really funny that I would be so far behind the curve. I guess this goes back about 6 years now, right? 6 years ago. But yeah, that up until that time, I was, pretty much thinking only of cannabis use as a recreational thing, like a lot of guys, I guess, my age. But then you all showed me that any use, all cannabis use is medicinal use, and there's really no such thing as using it any other way. And yeah, so that really turned my head around. I started concentrating on making medicine. I ended up getting that press, which was really cool. It's very fat. That's really cool. It's sitting right over here. And being able to press. I've never done the hash route because flower rosin is fantastic, and it's also really great to eat. And that turned out to be, that was a really good move to get this thing, and then I ended up sending some medicine to a friend of mine who was, had terminal cancer, and he ended up coming out and staying with me for last couple of months, and that was really fantastic. That was a great experience. That would have never happened to me if, if I'd have met you guys and you had to turn me on to this whole medicinal curve of things, which has been really fun. Except for that, you know, he didn't end up surviving. So I guess we kind of lost that fight. I was kind of pissed off about that, but you know, what can you do? But I think it definitely increased his quality of life for the last couple of months, may possibly extended a few months, you know, maybe. Because we were, it turns out that the rosin, flower rosin, when you press it at low temp, you can eat quite a bit of it. You can dose very high. It makes a really, really good, you know, it's a very good, maybe an alternative to RSO and that kind of stuff, which he my friend was also getting when he came out here to California. And the RSO products, those are pretty good, but the straight flower rosin was I think very effective. You can, like I said, you can dose really high on it. You eat a lot of it. And if it's low temp, you don't get super stoned, you know, which maybe you don't want. I guess if you're looking for the the effects of it, you can always cook it. You can always heat it and put it on a cookie or something like that. Yeah, nobody ever talks about eating flower rosin, but I mean, I haven't heard many people doing it, but I definitely recommend it if anyone has access to a press and, you know, some good flour. Press that stuff and eat it. Oh, not that it's good, not good for smoking. It's great for, you know, taking it all different kinds of ways, but eating it's really. So yeah, thanks to my relationship with Steve and Potent Ponics and turning me towards the medicine. But that was also, you know, very energizing, very really gave me a lot of you know, impetus to keep going and to keep working on stuff. And so more recently, I started a big grow of seed. Well, for me, a big grow of seeds. I think I started a little over 100, a couple different varieties, some from various places, and also stuff that I was worried about my own genetics that I knew I had to plant before they went bad. And that's pretty exciting. That's still ongoing. We're still you know, getting ready to test. Already tested a couple of them, gonna test a couple more soon. That's a brutal job. Can be. You have 9, you know, it's not too bad if you only have 2 or 3 or 4 plants of one kind of you know, one thing. But if you have 9 or 10 and they're all pretty good, it can be tough. Hard to say, you know, deciding. Look at different
somebody
factors.
in. We had some.
Yeah.
Well, I guess before we get to the chat question,
Sure.
what strains did you start breeding with when you started breeding?
When I first, you know, when I first started, let's see, I saved seeds right from the beginning, but I lost those. So you know, my grandmother kind of got me into seed saving and stuff with vegetables, and so I'd already kind of been led into that. And the first time I grew cannabis, I was 11 or 12 years old. My grandmother helped me, like 11, and I saved seeds from that, and I saved seeds from a couple of years later when I grew it. But in those days, we were the genetics I was getting were probably Colombian. I think it was, you know, it was. I'm pretty sure it was Colombian, and a lot of that stuff didn't finish. It didn't finish. You know, didn't get. I was living in Massachusetts. And I didn't actually manage to save seeds from those earliest times. I didn't really get going until sometime in so I checked with my teacher back in New York City, and it turns out he was living on 6th Street when I got the seeds for cherry bomb, would have been in 1976. Right. So I confirmed that with him a couple of months ago when I was there. So the cherry bomb was seeds from Maui Wowie, like a Hawaiian strain. And I didn't, I didn't breed that. I basically just seed saved that. But around the same time, or maybe a year or two later, was when we started getting the indica genetics in New York City. Specifically, musicians were getting it in. They were getting in flower form. So before that, we would have gotten indica genetics, but it would have been in hash, right? We would have gotten hashish. But around sometime, maybe 76, 77, 78, we started getting flower form. And all of a sudden, the price, which had previously for an ounce had been, say 90 to 120 for good quality, all of a sudden this indica flower jumped up, was available for $3.90, $4.50 an ounce, and that was like, oh my God, it's so expensive. But it was the very first of the skunk, hardcore hash indica hash weed, but in flower form that we'd ever seen. And so occasionally seeds would come up. I had a couple of friends in the music business, and people saved seeds for me, got a hold of various different strains. And when I ended up creating a strain called Triple X, which was a necessity because I had the female, most of the indica genetics back in those days, if you got a hold of a seed, it was only that one seed in all the flower. The flower was Sensamayan, but they were gigantic, hard, dense indica nugs, large size. And they hardly, they wouldn't have a seed in it. But if there was a seed, it was, now I realized in retrospect, or I figured out years later, that the seed was, most likely either self-pollinated or pollinated by a male flower on a female plant, hermaphrodite flower. So a lot of those seeds produced, I don't think I ever got a male from any of those indica kind of seeds that came in the flowers occasionally. I don't think I ever got a male plant. But anyway, this one really nice one, this great hashweed plant that I had nothing to cross it with. And at the time, I happened to have a clone of a wonderful plant from Jamaica that a friend of mine had brought back in a plastic bag in his underwear. So he grabbed it that afternoon, and he knew that I could root it. He stuck it in a plastic bag with some water, put it in his pants, and smuggled it back to New York City. I rooted it, grew up to be a beautiful male plant, And the guys, the Rasta guys that he had gotten the clone from had told him that it was called Jamaican lamb's breath, which I recently found out from another older Rastafarian cannabis grower from Jamaica, that Jamaican lamb's breath is not a strain of cannabis, but is a way of growing it. It's a way of regenerating. It's when you have a plant that you regenerate the next year and flower it again. And I guess it has a real green smell or taste to it or something like that. So that's why they call it Jamaican lamb's breath. And what was I going to say about that? Oh yeah, so I crossed. That was the male plant I had. He didn't have any. He didn't have anything related to him. I had the indica hashweed female over here. So they had to be crossed together, and that turned into this one, fantastic strain that I used for years called Triple X. And then I suppose another strain that I created starting later in the late 90s, maybe into the early 2000s, I massaged White Widow into a strain that I call White Wizard. And that's about it. I mean, I've as far as actual, if you call a real strain something that's been inbred 6 or 7 generations, then And then those are the only ones I've really made, I guess. Started on quite a few others, maybe either not finished them or lost them at some point.
Got a question from chat. Can you
Yes.
explain the history of cherry bomb?
Cherry bomb, yeah. Well, that's what I just seed saved it myself. Like I said, I didn't cross anything into it or cross anything out of it. It's exactly from the original 7 seeds that I got from my teacher, my kung fu teacher in New York City, from a I think it was about a pound bag. There were 6, 7, I think maybe original seeds in it. It was Maui Wowie. It was from Hawaii, and there was a little bit of variation in the beginning. I'm pretty sure it had been recently crossed with some kind of indica, and I was more drawn to the sativa side of things, which was more. It was sort of one of the plants was, decidedly had a really strong cherry, basically like a cherry lifesaver in that first generation. A lot of red coloring on the stems, and really, really delicious. A lot of aftertaste, kind of. So I ended up steering the strain in that direction. It was the first, because it was around that same time that we were getting a lot more. We were also getting the indica plants, and so the difference of the cherry bomb was decidedly, at least especially the part of it I liked was the more what we would now call more sativa sort of type characteristics of it, and I think it was just this is a natural thing to just you like variation. You already had these other kind of strong indica strains over here, and then here comes this really fruity, sativa or whatever, and you naturally get drawn to the variations. So that's pretty much the history of it. I kept it, I inbred it, or I'm not exactly sure. By the time I started trying to distribute it and get it out, I realized that I had to do something with it. I had to distribute it to make sure that at a certain point you realize you can't keep all your eggs in one basket, and you've done all this work, saving the thing and maybe even steering the genetics in some direction, and you realize it's a big responsibility. And I had these other strains that I wanted to work on too, and cherry bomb was already down a good 12 or 13 generations of straight inbreeding, which is kind of cool because a lot of people think that automatically you're going to have inbreeding depression and stuff like that. And I guess cherry bomb kind of shows that it's not that it's not a thing, because I might have gotten into some. In fact, I definitely introduced some degree of inbreeding depression with XXX, because I wasn't as smart with that. I didn't know what I was doing. And with cherry bomb, I was much more. I worked early on. I worked towards getting more, not exactly open pollinated, but non-select. Not using only one, using a number of females and using a number of males. Percentage. I think that really helps.
What traits were you breeding for early on?
Well, I think that's what I said. I just kind of looked at what it was, and what I like. To me, it was this very fruity, sweet sativa with these, I in those days I didn't really think much about the traits of the effects of it and stuff like that. But years later, when I sent genetics up to a collective up in Oregon, they might have been, maybe, I don't know if they're friends of Clack's or not. Maybe he could tell me. But and they were medical guys, and they wanted to use, and they told me that they liked cherry bomb a lot because they said it had a high ceiling. You could consume a lot of it, and you wouldn't necessarily pass out. You know, it wasn't like because, and I attribute that to it being more. I suppose that's more of a sativa trait. You know, it's a very probably, it's not exactly a real heavy stimulating sativa. As a matter of fact, I think cherry bomb has some definite pain killing effects. It often makes you feel like you're kind of walking on pillows or something like that. Like there's some kind of, soft, so there might be some kind of analgesic effect there or whatever. I never really, I don't really, haven't done a lot of, actual tests on, but you can definitely, especially when you start pressing flower rosin, you can really tell there's huge differences, especially if you make a topical, if you make some kind of a topical, some strains are much more topically, practically make you rub it on your hand, it feels almost numb, there's like a really, and other ones, only is more mildly. So I have no idea what these chemicals are, I suppose we're starting to zero in on these things in the science and all that, but for sure you can just, take cannabis resin and rub it on your skin and, you know what I mean? And you can feel the one being different than the other. Many different strains have different effects.
Sure.
Yeah.
Shout out Mr. Green for the awesome jars. Hopefully get him on the Wednesday show here soon. Remember Mr. Green back in the early 2000s? Used to paint himself green.
Oh, yes. He
was on the show a while back.
Nice.
A friend of the show. He came out, shout out to him as well. He came out to the main conference, the Regen conference, and he's got some books out too. Check them out as well. I Grow Chronic. So what are some of the other different traits that you're looking for in terms of early on with males and females? Because I'm sure they're a lot different than today.
Yeah, definitely. I think back in the day, breeding was a little trickier. Like I said, I probably made some wrong turns with some strains like Triple X, and maybe got a little bit luckier with the cherry bomb. And cherry bomb was, already, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think in many ways it's gotten a lot easier to breed because most of the stuff you're going to come across, most of the genetics you're going to come across have quite a few generations of good plants behind them. You know what I mean? But if you back in those days, if you had just recently crossed a couple of completely unrelated strains, you probably we're going to see a lot of, kind of funny stuff in the first few generations. And also very obvious, variation, like if you have if the indica side, for example, is tons of THC and the sativa one is low on THC, then in the next couple of generations, you're going to see big breakdown there. And those are going to be easy to choose, if you're going to easily gravitate towards the ones that are stronger and stuff like that. But nowadays, you can cross a couple things and almost everything's going to be pretty high in THC. And it's like, wow, how do I make the decisions? And I really think that the art there is looking at a lot of different traits. It's really easy to get sidetracked or focused on one thing. Those are kind of the mistakes I probably made earlier on, was not looking as much at, looking more at only a few traits and not really looking at the whole plant. And that's takes a long each time, not just you should give a lot of the plants a lot of different times of smelling them too, going up to them, one hand rub this plant one hand, rub that plant, compare them, and do that on a lot of different occasions. Um, yeah, that's the thing, is just look at it, consider a lot of traits. Try to look at every plant and see and smell and observe a lot of different things, especially, like I said, nowadays, since we can make these crosses where there's probably a lot of good genetics in the recent generations, meaning that if you do a big grow out and you have, even if you have 20 sisters and they're all really good, good luck to you. Well, I'm just saying, it's not going to be an easy session, and you're going to have to consider a lot of things, to decide. They're not going to be standout plants so much, and you might end up, but get a group of people together, few, 2 or 3, 4 people, and most people, you'd be surprised, even with plants that are seem to be ranked really close to each other, seem to be very similar, there's usually a fair amount of agreement. And that's not even considering the traits you might have noticed while growing, of course, like looking at, wow, these three are much bigger, and they have much more yield, or finished quicker too, started sooner, finished quicker. All those things might be worth something to you. They might not be, fast finishing, that's a commercial thing, if you're a connoisseur grower, you don't care. Another week, extra time, doesn't matter. It's worth it.
And that's the kind of stuff when you're not
Yeah.
doing a commercial grow, it's perfectly fine to take 2 or 3 extra weeks, but
Exactly.
or you can maybe get away with an extra week, but much more than that,
Yes,
you're pushing it.
totally. I think it was Soma that said, somebody asked Soma, when is the perfect time to harvest, and he was like, when it looks perfect, give it another week. And I was like, that's great. It's just, I don't know, and it's also kind of, in that you've done such a great job, the plant's so happy that it's going to be happy for another week. And that's another thing, is that cannabis gets a lot harder to care for towards, during flowering and past. Like Marty said, I was saying, isn't it like, it's like tomatoes, isn't it? And Marty said, well, it's easier. It's maybe easier than tomatoes in the beginning, and maybe a little harder than tomatoes towards the end. I thought that was a good observation, because, taking a cannabis plant gracefully into advanced flowering, senescence, and really, but still having it be, in good shape and not, no problems. That's, that takes, that's the connoisseur skills. And it's worth it, it's like, especially if it's the genetics, that's why I said, it's like, commercially, you want something that's going to finish fast. It matters a lot to you. You've got a certain amount of square feet and whatnot. But if you're the home grower, you go for the longer flowering thing, tastes better. Get the leaves are going to get yellow and lose all their chlorophyll. Yummy. Mwah.
So what traits do you look for in males?
Oh yeah, man, selecting males. I mean, God, I think there's a couple of rules there. I mean, I think that one thing is, it's really good to choose, if you can, choose a male from a strain. So it's got, it's from an actual inbred strain, which is, hard to find. The only reason for that is because it's going to be easier to sort out traits in subsequent generations. It kind of doesn't even matter what the strain is, as long as it's just so a male from a strain is a great idea. The other thing is to look at the sisters. this is one of the best reasons to have a fairly large grow, is to be able to judge the males by their sisters, which usually, unless you've done any funny, tricky breeding schemes, back crossing or weird stuff like that, usually the males and females will sort out into kind of groups that are similar. So you could say, well, these guys are like these girls here. And then by looking at the number, that number of girls, and you say, out of the 12 girls, I really like these 4. So you can probably assume that out of 12 males, there's going to be 3 or 4 that are going to be the good ones, right? You know what I mean? In other words, you can kind of guess at your numbers by looking at the numbers of females. So if you have 3/4 of them, if 8 out of 12 of the females are exactly what you're looking for, then probably a lot of the males are also exactly what you're looking for. But if it's only a few of the females that have those right traits, and then you can pair the males up and you can look at the female and you can say, wow, she has, long petioles and nice big leaves like this and kind of short internodes, and there's a male that looks like that and has the same kind of color of the leaves. And you can't tell all these other things. I mean, of course you can smell, absolutely highly recommend getting in there and rubbing the stem of the male. I'm just saying, I'm assuming you already did that. Other things that you can look at, I think it's really important, like I said, to pair them up with the sisters to figure out how many of them you're looking for. And if there's 12 males and indications from the sisters is that you really only want 3 of those males, then that's, you got to be careful, because you're looking for only 1 out of 4 of them. You're only looking for a quarter. But then I would add in another male anyways, because males are awesome. Because males, I have this theory that they vary more. There's more variation with the males. So a lot of times it's very common for the best plant in the grow to be a male, which sucks, because then it's hard to figure out hard to figure him out because he's a male. But it is common. I swear it's like, and I think the reason why is because the males often have extreme traits. A lot of times the wimpiest, the little scrawny one, something like that, is a male. A lot of the outliers, you'll find out the male's the weird one. That's a strange one. And so sometimes I throw those in, especially if it looks like there's a lot of suitable females. If it's a good 50% of the females are good and they're like pretty much exactly what you're looking for, then throw in a weird male, for good luck, for sure. Yeah, so that's how you choose males. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Just get lucky. And of course, the big healthy ones, all the males that are vigorous, obviously, big and strong. Sorry, what are you gonna say?
I was gonna say, which traits are you looking for specifically in the males?
Well, I think those that, like I said, trying to match them with their sisters. A lot of structural things that you can see, and later on, when the sisters start to show traits with their terpenes, and you start to smell their resin and everything like that, a lot of times the males that match those ones structurally that you like, the females that you like, those males probably will have, that have the similar structure traits, kind of. So you can sort. This is why I'm saying to be able to sort them in these groups. That's why it's good to have a big grow, looking at the females, and then and maybe it's my imagination, but sometimes it seems to me like later on in more advanced flowering, that's when you can smell those smells on the males, that you have this female over here that you think is kind of his counterpart. You feel like these two are kind of similar, and and you go and you rub the stem on that male, and you can, you're like, oh yeah, it kind of does smell like that female. So you can even match. Males do have very faint smell. A little bit. There's a little bit of terpenes going on there,
Well,
and some of them can be strong.
the trikes on males just take a lot longer to finish. So like,
Yes,
they'll flower out and then be done flowering, and then the trikes will start to mature. So,
yes,
add a few weeks onto when they flower, and that's when you actually see the actual traits.
exactly. You can absolutely smell males more when they really get going, when they're really in flowering. And this is another reason not to have, pollen fear and all that. It's no big deal. You know, pollen doesn't just blow around in the air. It's especially when it first comes off of the flowers. It's pretty heavy. It's wet. And it sinks. Unless there's a fan, unless there's blowing, the pollen just drops to the ground. I've had many times with plants directly in front of and right next to the females. As long as there's no actual fan blowing on them, it's they're not even, none of the pollen's even going to make it. It's just going to drop right on the ground. So the whole general fear of pollen, that's kind of overrated. It's overrated. You don't have to really freak out. You can handle it.
What
There are people out. Sorry, yeah.
what traits are you currently breeding? I know
Yeah,
you're working on a whole bunch of projects right now. What are you currently trying to hunt down?
Yeah, messing around with that. I'm still fooling around with that Blackberry Kush. I grew out a bunch of double back crossed ones. I think I got about 6 females. I only got 1 male. I guess I was really lucky. And that was, I think, the last batch. I think I tried all my seeds, so this is kind of the last ditch attempt. But I'm planning to cross the brother and sister of those. So those are double back crossed. I call them. Way I write on the way they're marked is 7/8 black BK Blackberry Kush, meaning 7/8 in fractions. I don't know why I do that, but that's the way I've always written that shit. But yeah, those I smell, and wow, they're incredible. It's a really nice hardcore indica. I also made this other one crossed. I used a male, which I used a male single back crossed Blackberry Kush crossed in with a clone of Master Kush, which was around here in Los Angeles. This is getting back, man. I think that clone is at least 15 years old by now. And just a really nice indica, commercial indica, very, high yielding, fast finishing, just, vigorous, not a hothouse flower, just a really perfect plant. And even if you give it, if you can keep it happy long enough, the leaves will even get a little bit yellow, which I think is pretty cool. A lot of indicas just finish so fast that their, leaves are still dark green. And so the Master Kush is just this great commercial indica clone. I just kept it around because it was just like, wow, that's pretty good, But over the years, I've tried crossing it with different males, and a lot of stuff didn't really work out that well. But then the single back crossed Blackberry Kush male, that made a really nice cross. That's a really good indica. And I named it after my friend. You came to his restaurant, Koji, the izakaya place. I named it Koji's Kush because he liked it so much. It's nice. It's a heavy indica, and it's like, whew, So, but I'm, yeah, I mean, I'm not using, for years, I've sort of ignored indicas, which is really funny. I mean, I don't know why. It's not like I don't like it, indicas. I do. I love them. I just was, I don't know. I was just on a sativa kick there for a while. You tried, you had some of the rosin from the Oreo, huh? That, oh boy,
Yeah,
oh boy,
really good.
fantastic. It's incredible sativa, really bracing, like a couple cups of espresso or something like that. People that don't believe that, that there's such a difference in the effects. You're like, oh yeah, try this. But, yeah, traits. Yeah, it's a cool. What recently? Well, and I started the seeds from you. I've got those two Jamaican blue. So it's Jamaican Blue Mountain X Orange Hill. Those both look pretty nice. One of them smells a little bit nicer than the other. And then I've got the three Durbans. And I didn't keep the male. He was definitely very hothouse flower. I kicked him out.
Good Durbans always smell like a fresh tire fire.
Oh boy, that's a god, man. And one of the Blue Mountain X Orange Hills smells pretty dangerous too. It's not exactly a tire fire smell, but it's a very acrid.
Someone's doing burnouts in front or a street over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a threatening smell, It's funny because we're used to lately, especially a lot of popular dispensary, like the kind of indica. Maybe it's just a California thing, I don't know. But the very fruity, the sort of berry type berry indicas, that are very sweet and nice, and they're strong and everything, but they're very, and then you smell something like that, and it's like, ooh.
Oklahoma is all limonene right now. I mean,
Really?
everything I find in dispensaries is limonene.
Huh.
And sativas because it's powdery mildew resistant, and these people don't know how to grow in the humidity out here.
That's right.
But we had really good luck with the hash plant and with Rosetta Stone and with the Durbans and blue hash crosses. All smelled and came out great. That were more of that tire fire terpene profile.
Wow. I still have the blue hash number one.
So that blue hash is so good as far as a bread and butter, like does really good in a wide variety of climates, does really well in high humidity, low humidity, high winds, low winds. It's just a good all around plant,
it's
just
tough.
produces, and large trichome diameter, so it's good for washing. So just a good all around plant.
It's badass. It has a smell in there, and it reminds me of a white wizard. I don't have the right male right now. I don't like the male I've been using. I'm looking for another, and if I can find the right male white wizard, that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to cross it with that blue hash plant. I think that's going to be really nice. That's what I'm waiting for her. That's fantastic genetics, dude. What else? I have all kinds of stuff from you. I just can't think of it right now.
Those Shirley Temple crosses are really good for 1-to-1s.
Shirley Temple. What a great plant. And yeah.
And then you so you cross everything with your BSBB. It's one of your Feijoa Kush, which is one of your like major ones you use in your breeding. Do you want to tell everybody about that? Maybe explain that to people.
Yep. Let's see. The BSBB is that is exactly right. It's the Feijoa Kush crossed with the BS side is Blue Dream X Island Sweet Skunk. And the Blue Dream clone, I'm pretty sure the Santa Cruz clone, which was a really good, excellent breeding clone. So the BSBB was was a sort of a two-way double hybrid. So the BB that's the Feijoa Kush, which is that's the Blackberry Kush, but that also has Blizz, which is that's the Blue Dream White Wizard with a little bit of Jack Herrera in there too. So this one, and that male has some of the stuff seeds I've been growing out now are from that BSBB male, and that's some fantastic stuff.
Yeah, that way back Jack that you have is killer.
Yeah, yes. The BSBB also crossed with the quirk. What I have QX, which was Quirkle crossed with Triple X, and some of those, man, I grew at about, I grew at about 9 or 10 of the females of those, and about 2 or 3 of them. Let's see, the 1, 5, and the 8 or whatever they are. Fantastic. Those are going to be really good, and they're giant. They're big. They're big, very aggressive growing. Is real, hybrid, real sativa indica, really blended. The Blizz was really fantastic. Really starting to get to the fusion of the characteristics of indicas and sativas. A lot of times you see, things, even nowadays, you see sort of extreme traits kind of sorted out. Whereas I've always admired that really made sort of intricate blending of traits. I think the first time I saw that was probably, White Widow or something like that. Maybe during the 90s or whatever. Saw plants like that with really, really elegant blending of the traits, indicas and sativas. And now we have, we're starting to get quite a few wonderful hybrids. I think the future of genetics is very bright. I've said this before. I don't think we're like breeding ourselves into the corner or any of that shit. Mixing the colors together doesn't automatically make brown. You know what I mean? It's not like we're losing stuff. As a matter of fact, I think we're gaining. I've seen stuff. I've said this before too. I've seen stuff pop right up, out of. And you always got to be, on the lookout for the possibility that something is a rogue pollination. But I've seen stuff really apparently appear where you're like, wow, how did that, where did that come from?
Oh yeah, I got some Australian bastard cannabis crosses that are F2s that are far enough along to show the trait that I definitely am looking forward to popping. Shout out Happy Tree Farms, or Happy Tree Seeds. Great dude over there. Met him out at the Regen conference in Humboldt. Took me a minute to remember which Regen conference. Oh, that's really cool about the BSBB though. I know it's definitely one of your favorite ones. So why is it your favorite one or one of your favorite ones to cross with a lot of your other stuff? Because seems to be one of your favorites.
That's true. It's just that I just figured out that male. I noticed that male was working really good, and I could tell. Every now and then you run along, you find a plant. It's more common to find a female plant that everything you cross it with turns out to have all those traits that you like about that female. You know what I mean? Like I have that old Jack Herrera clone that everything you cross, any male you put into her, you're going to get stuff, that you're going to get all her traits that you like about her. So when you find a male plant like that, it's really cool. And the BSBB, one of the things I really like it is the S, which is the island sweet skunk or the sweet island skunk. Just this wonderful. That was done by, it was BC. I know, Steve, I know you said you liked it before too. It's just incredible. what it is was like the old time haze, like the island sweet skunk. It was this amazing
Oh
very
yeah,
the sweet funky when you smoke
has a
it.
has a caramel aftertaste to it. And in fact, I just had a conversation about this with Jordan, who was on the show yesterday. But him and I were hanging out last week, and I told him, I said, this is the first strain I've tasted that tastes like the old sweet skunk we used to grow, that has that kind of caramel, like sugary aftertaste to it, almost like a,
So
yeah,
wonderful.
it literally tastes like a hot caramel, like a
Yes.
creme brulee caramel, like something that's been like toasted kind of thing,
Yes.
without any other better explanation.
Yeah.
Um,
The
that's
most
what it comes out. But that was the
the,
first plant I ever got into high times. That was like that when I finally like broke into the oh shit, like I'm growing, decent plants kind of moment was getting that island sweet skunk into high times when they
yeah.
featured.
And the seeds that I got, the genetics that I got, my favorite plant, the one that I really liked out of the grow was definitely not impressive looking at all. It was very kind of scruffy looking, like scruffy, um, visually kind of like, whoa. Didn't I guess what you would say is probably didn't have much bag appeal. Not that I ever got it to the point where it was in a bag, but
Not everything does though. I remember in
oh yeah,
Colorado, one of our best strains in terms of like just getting you wrecked was a strain called Candy Kush, Kand Y, Candy, that with a K,
yeah,
and just it was very I don't even know, but it was very fluffy and it didn't look all
yeah,
that great. It looked kind of like B
yeah.
grade, not all that great stuff. But you smoke a bowl of that and you are just lit. It was one of
Just
my
lit.
favorites.
Yeah, you definitely cannot judge a book by its cover. I mean, that was one of the lessons of Island Sweet Skunk. But yeah, I love to me it reminded me of the old with like purple haze like that. I felt like it was a true haze plant. And I think one time I even remember, looking and seeing the way that, in the room kind of still, and the way it would collect as a layer of smoke in the room, and it was purplish or bluish, and there was literally almost a blue tinge to the to the color of the cloud. Now, I don't know if this is a real thing, but I've told this story a couple times, and other old stoners have said, "Oh yeah, man, I know exactly what you mean. When the cloud there, it's floating in the room, and it has a blue tinge to it." So anyway, that was my experience, and also the smell of in the room of the island sweet skunk. When you walked out of the room, if you came back in, it was this lingering in there with this, beautiful, beautiful, sweet, very, wow, what were you guys smoking in here? People would come into the room. Hey, what about me? Yeah, so that was one of my favorite things about, and the thing about mixing traits. So that male was double hybrid, right? It was a 50% the Feijoa Kush on the male side, on the female side, a cross between a female Blue Dream and a male Island Sweet Skunk. So you could say it was a double hybrid. And that would be like, oh yeah, really blending, just going for brown, but not at all. Like that, the male had very much, is kicking all these very focused traits. A lot of the plants coming out of him have that, a lot of the stuff that I liked from the Island Sweet Skunk, which was the whole idea, you know, and really good structural traits from the Blue Dream, and just heavy sticky resin production from the Feijoa Kush. So you pick things, you pick traits to blend. You can go on crossing like crazy. It's not like, I did my thing making strains back in the day, and now I like the idea of seed batches that have variation to them, but not just like wild variation within a theme, and the chances of finding really good plants. I would never want to breed down to people, like give them the seeds that were, all over. I'm going to keep the good seeds for myself.
I get you some puck crosses too. So something else I got to make sure I put in your goodie bag here coming up.
Yeah. Ooh, can't wait. Yes.
We had a question, a couple. Well, I guess I'll keep going down the list here.
Cool.
Is there any bad traits to look out for? So anything that you've associated where, man, like I can see that early on, I immediately know that that's just not gonna pan out.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is a lot of genetics that I've noticed that I started with, and I that I did ditch pretty early. A lot of times, based on it being, for example, what I, in my opinion, of being kind of like a hothouse flower, like something. I'm spoiled, like cherry bomb. If you grow anything next to cherry bomb, the cherry bomb's all tough and big, and and everything else is kind of so. And so if it's something that's really, hard to grow, requires a lot of care, it's not a tough. It's kind of like I said, a hothouse flower. Then I that, and I definitely, if I've got a chance to, this is one of the things why you should. Another good reason to grow to start a lot of seeds of anything, if you have it available, is to rogue out weaker plants in the beginning. Like that's one of the perfect times, because the whole problem with cannabis is, in general, is that we usually only can make selections towards the end when we can see it all flowering and stuff like that. But we can also make early selections, and that would be, I would consider roguing, and I would do that based on just sort of the general health and vigor of the plants, especially if you suspect, like, for example, anything that I crossed with that quercle, right? The quercle was so awesome. It was so cool, but man, I had the original clone for a while, about 6 months. I was like, Jesus, I can't carry you anymore. You're too hard to take care of. And, besides the crossing, that I crossed it with the triple X, and the hybrid was way better. I mean, it was just much easier to take care of. And the original quercle was, and so in subsequent generations, of course, I was looking out for, had hothouse flower kind of ones. And I was like, yeah, that's from your mother's side of the family, I'd sort of rogue out, look at those seed batches. I know I'm going to plant more of them. I know that if I want, 30, I want to look at 30 females, then I'm going to start with 100, and with the potential of 50, and taking out the 20 sort of smaller, weaker ones. So that definitely, that's something that you're gonna, roguing is possible to do that early on, looking for plants that are weak. Another thing that you could definitely, I don't particularly like plants that need a long day length. So my vegging is never any longer than 17 hours. Sometimes I put it up, like even just to that, to accommodate some plants that seems to not want it to really ever come out of flowering. So if I have something in there that it's like a, auto flower or whatever, that's getting out of here. Forget it. I'm not gonna, because if it's gonna keep on flowering under 16, it's only gonna get 16 hours. Hello. Some stuff wants more, some stuff's like, I want a longer day length. And I'm like, well, go grow in somebody else's garden. And geez, I can't. No, it's not a matter of can't afford the electricity. It's not that at all. It's just that, holy shit, how long is the longest day? 16 hours is north of where Josh lives. The day never gets that long. That's unrealistic. What are you going to do? Grow in Alaska? anyway, I think all cannabis, you know, I got a thing against, and because I think a lot of cannabis recently has been bred by people who are running 20-hour day lengths or 20, even 24-hour. Gosh, God forbid.
Well, 24, I'm against 24
I
because
know.
I've seen a lot of firm traits in 24. So I've seen a lot of CBD, specifically with CBD lines. It seems to be that's when I started noticing the pattern was a lot of CBD cuts. If you run them under 24 for veg or for clones or for seedlings, they really pout, and you actually have nanners on them under 24 hours of veg, but they don't have it under 18 hours.
It's stressful for sure. The idea that plants actually grow at nighttime. If you ever look, you come back in the morning and, all of a sudden they're bigger and they're touching each other. Like, of course they they grow at night. They love their nighttime. And, what I say is the more healthy they are, the faster they're growing during the day, the more photosynthesis they're doing during the day, the more they need a little rest at night. If they're not doing,
they're like humans, right? They have different hormones that are produced at night and different ones that are produced during the day when we're active and when we're not active. So they have to have that balance. And doesn't mean that they have to have a long night period, but they have to have a night period.
I think so. That's my opinion. And I thought of an interesting thing. This is kind of a left field idea, but when I was in the hydro store recently in this place I always go to here in Southern California, and it was during the heat wave, and the guy's like, "Hey, how you doing? How's the plants handling the heat?" And my plants were doing pretty well, and I said, "Well, don't remind people to turn down the direct fans. Remind people not to point the fans away from don't force the transpiration of the plants." And he looked at me. I think he understood, did that one. And but then later on, I was thinking, I realized I should have mentioned to him about CO2. That 'cause plants can take higher temperatures and they transpire water less when the CO2 is higher. So I don't know if anybody's ever had any experience with this. It was just kind of an idea that I realized. I was like, well, maybe in this excess heat is a good time to supplement CO2. Am I out of my mind, Steve?
I don't know, because heat and extra ppms as well of nutrients is gonna help make those plants cycle faster. So, but you're gonna have to increase nutrient amount as well.
Of course, yes, yeah. I was just thinking that maybe it helps to cut down a little bit on transpiration. That it would, because the more CO2, the stomatas, they can keep their holes whatever size, and they're able to transpire less water when there's more CO2 in the air. And I don't know whether that helps the plants to during heat stress or not.
During heat, they're gonna kind of sweat basically to try and lose that. Not sweat, obviously. They don't have sweat.
No, but the water,
they perspire and go through water faster to cool
helps
down.
Yep, the transpiration helps them to cool down. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but anyways, I was
using the wrong words for that, but you guys know what I mean.
Yes.
Another question was
Sure.
how much more stretch do 14-week long flower strains have, if any? So most strain, there's an interesting study by a gentleman out of Canada who does a lot of aquaponic stuff, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head at the moment. I do apologize to the gentleman whose name I can't remember at the moment, but he has a great paper. I'm sure you can Google foo it on scholar.google.com. But basically, they found that most strains between day 21 and day 25 stop stretching no matter what the flowering time is in terms of vertical lift. They'll still keep doing their thing and take longer to flower, but most strains end within that 3 week plus minus range. So, and they did have quite a bit of variety with the strains they tested on that. So, I can't imagine anything stretching more than 30 days, even on a long stretch, just to be generous on that. Again, happy to be proven wrong, but that's what the science currently backs up. Have you seen anything stretch particularly long? Most of the stuff seems to, it'll take a long time to flower, but doesn't seem to stretch quite as long. It doesn't stay vegging. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think a lot of that has to do with also there's the thing of continuing to feed. We were talking about this before. I think it's like if there's still available nitrogen or whatever. And, that I think is one of the big causes of, also of hermaphrodites in my opinion. It's just, it's just my observation is that, the feeding nitrogen towards, but yeah, because it's like, when do you stop feeding? And it's a long season sativa and you're planning to take it a long time. So you're trying to figure out when, I usually think you should definitely stop feeding. I feel like everything by the, sort of that peak flower, maybe. There's no reason really to feed anything more, but yeah, for sure. Dominant sativas, anything with a long flowering season, it's going to eat more further, and that can be complicated. That's why Oreo, like the clone, is hard to grow. It's super vigorous plant and everything, but then it has really thin little leaves and I don't think thin leaves are good at storing nutrients. So that's one of the things I think you got to consider. You look at the plant, you're trying to figure out what to do with your clone. How thick are the leaves, like when to stop feeding and whatnot. But I think a lot of times stretching, anything that makes the roots grow. Again, if you're growing in a bed, that's again why I think it can be, that's tricky. How do you stop? How do you keep? You don't want it necessary, and it's totally genetic dependent, right? Some plants are going to stop growing their roots anyway. They don't care. Other plants maybe could be tempted to growing some roots, and then that makes them more prone to foxtailing, stretching, bud continuing stretch, or maybe hermaphrodite flowers even. So, it's a complicated thing. That's taking care of any. It's much harder to flower a plant for 14 weeks than it is for, 9 weeks. You know what I mean? The longer the flowering period, the more skill it takes.
Oh yeah. You're also oftentimes with the longer flowering times, we'll have a couple of parts of the plant that maybe finish a little earlier. And you're going to have a couple of, you're going to have some sections that may be finished off, where some of those trikes are a little bit, already ripened or past ripe, which can
definitely some plants
feel weird.
Some plants can be harvested in separate sections for sure, where they like it better. Yep. And I think that's something to do with the feeding, the way it's tricky. It's like probably maybe under some ideal conditions that plant would have, other conditions would have finished all the time. But if for some reason, I don't know. I'm a big proponent of underfeeding in general. And I don't mean drastically, and I don't mean chronic underfeeding, but a little bit, especially towards the end. And that's what's going to give you, get your long season sativa. That's what's going to give it that real connoisseur, beautiful, light golden.
I definitely agree that certainly if you're trying to get those more caramely or sugary or fruity aftertastes at the end, if you're feeding up until, week 6, week 7, you're not going to get those.
No. Yeah. You have to let all the delicate stuff come through. And that's one of the things about Aiken genetics too, is because when you're starting to fiddle around with your hybrids, that's one of the traits I feel like I'm always trying to get rid of as an indica trait, I call it, where they're, that the leaves will not turn. Like I was saying, that I love that Master Kush clone because it's possible to get at least some of the lower leaves to turn yellow on this thing. And whereas a lot of sort of indica dominant plants, they're gonna, everything's all finished up and everything in the leaves are still dark blue green. And the flavor of that is those are the plants that in my opinion, that they improve a lot after a month or a couple of months of curing, slow drying after the initial drying in the jar. The chlorophyll gets a lot better. But that's an indicator. That's the stuff that catches you in the throat and you're like that I feel it's the chlorophyll that we all supposedly don't like, and everybody hates flower rosin that's dark. Oh my god, it's so dark in color.
Puffing on some great stuff from Jordan River from Growcast. Shout out Jordan. It's really awesome weed tonight.
Nice. Yeah, I was.
So what we had some other questions from chat. This is let me see here. How much we already went through that one. Can you touch on the methods you use for cultivation and how that's evolved over time?
For cultivation, as in, you mean ways of growing?
Yeah, how you grow and how that's changed over the years.
Yeah, I think I've gradually, I think that, space is the thing. When you're breeding, you can never have enough space. And it's not just that, my space was small, but I think anybody who's trying to breed cannabis or anything will tell you they didn't really have enough room, for anything, because no matter what, you end up filling up your whole space. Whatever space you have, you're going to fill it up. And in the beginning, I think over time, I've kept on getting to smaller and smaller containers. And now I use really small containers. I think Steve, I sent you a photograph. That closet is like 4 by 6. And I had at least I think 45 plants in there that were in 20 ounce cups, and they eventually, the females ended up flowering in quart containers, and they never got any bigger than that for quite a few years, maybe even 20 recently as 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I was probably always flowering in gallon pots, and maybe many years before that I was probably flowering maybe even in 2-gallon pots or something like that. And that's, you can't really fit unless you have when I was in New York City, I actually did have more space. So somewhat of necessity of downsizing in spaces, but no matter how much space you have, you're going to try and get more plants in there. So that's been the thing of smaller and smaller, flowering plants as small and as early as possible. The other thing is,
have you noticed a lot of strains that kind of fight you on that kind of have like a minimum veg time?
Definitely, absolutely. As a matter of fact, that's a sativa thing, is that a lot of sativas just want to be a certain age. They just don't want to, a more indica dominant thing, flower it earlier, and it's gonna still show you the bunch of the traits that it really has. But a lot of sativas, I've almost gotten in the habit of, that's why keep clones, reevaluate them again, flower them again. Don't trust your first judgment. And besides, a lot of times, if I'm breeding stuff, I'm really big on progeny testing. So I always save clones of the best ones to breed them to find out which, and then grow out a few seeds of those to find out which is going to pan out the best. I did that a lot with White Wizard, and that is a fantastic method. It can be a little bit slow because you're kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but it's absolutely worth it. What was I going to say about, did I get sidetracked? Was I answering, what was I saying? I forgot.
Mhm.
Uh, um, about the
How your grow methods have changed.
oh yeah, changing grow methods over the years. Absolutely, trying to fit more plants into smaller space. Also, a tendency towards less stress. I think in general, and you might say, well, isn't flowering the plants like really early? That's kind of a stress itself. But in general, trying to get because stress is kind of hammer the plants into being more similar, similarities. It's harder to sometimes can be harder to choose plants if there's a lot of the less kind of general stresses you're putting on the plants, the more different each one looks like. It encourages them to express themselves kind of. they become more individualistic like that, I think. So yeah, always working to keep stresses as low as possible, containers as small as possible, as many in space as I can fit. Early flowering is great because why? Because you can go through I have done 5 generations white wizard in 1 year. And that means saving seeds from plant. Remember, outdoors, it's only 1 generation a year. Indoors, you can push a strain through 4 or 5 generations a year. And that's really, that's something. That's accelerated evolution. It's kind of scary, isn't it? The planet.
Someone else asked, how do you determine the best time to harvest?
Yeah. I unfortunately, when I'm doing, like running a continuous harvest room, a lot of times it's just whenever, if there's enough room, then I'll let it go longer. If there's something else coming in, I've got to pick it earlier. I've never been really huge. I've noticed that genetically, very often this plant is this plant, whether I pick it earlier or later. And the differences between it and another plant that's genetically another plant, those differences are consistent and don't seem to change all that much from so there may be differences from early to late harvesting. There might be subtle differences with the same plant, but there's certainly more differences between one strain and another strain, whether you pick it early or not. You know what I mean? If this one's a super lemony one, it's always gonna make you feel like giggling when you smoke it, whether you pick it early or pick it late. So at least that's been my experience. So I very often don't really pay attention to it. I do try to pay attention to it when I'm trying to collect that information to tell somebody. So I've been really watching these indicas because they the back cross, the ones I'm messing around with, the Blackberry Kush and stuff, because they're fast and that's one of the reasons that you like it. Whereas a lot of other stuff I've been messing around with over the last 10 or 15 years been sativas that, up in 10 weeks or whatever. And at that point, you don't, I don't know. It's already a long time, it's like, right. That's too long for commercial. Who the hell wants to flower for 10 weeks? Talk about somebody's to 14 weeks. Jesus, that's way too long. No, I'm not. I'm sure I do it all the time. I'm just saying that, I think I've been paying attention to some of these the indicas just because they're a lot faster and because it's one of their traits is wow, that's cool. These can finish really quick. And like I said, that's great. A lot of people want that. You want it commercially. It can also be really good for a newer grower just because it's less of a pain. really a shorter flowering period gives you less time to make mistakes. You know, you're probably going to do well. Probably get, don't you agree with that, Steve? Do you think that's true? I think that,
Oh yeah.
fast.
The other thing I was just going to say is that when you're I really like, especially if I don't know what the finishing time is on the strains. So say if I'm like out collecting seeds from a place and they don't know what the flowering time is, I'll just leave it at that. I'll
Yeah.
take that, and then I'll kind of, as soon as I start to see any amount of even 20% amber on the first buds, I'll take a nug off of it, and then maybe give that a quick wash, and then look at the percentages of the different sizes and kind of see where I'm at. Look at the different ripenesses of the different trichome sizes, and also look at which terpene profile I like the best. So if it's a really early finishing strain and I want to harvest it early, those smaller trichome heads are going to be really, in that profile that I'm looking for. If it's something that's going to be more of a heavy washer, they're going to be more that 73 to 90 trichome head wash size, and that's going to be a good dumper, for making hash and stuff like that. And then I can kind of slice it out and look at, okay, well, I can see, okay, well, maybe we harvest a little early this time, but next time we want to do that maybe a little bit later, or even pull down a single plant and wash it and kind of look at the different trichome head sizes and see, okay, well, this girl's a smaller trichome head size or a larger trichome head size washer. And then, okay, I can look at, 8 different maturity levels or 6 different maturity levels or whatever my bag set is, and then break that down based off of, how mature those trichome heads were. So that's the best way to kind of figure out and evaluate a strain, at least in my personal opinion. You can either you smoke those gland heads directly from that, or, squish them into rosin or whatever it is that you want to do to evaluate it. But to me, that's how you can kind of zero in on that perfect harvest time.
Dude, it's so true that every plant is so different, and even sisters of similar strains, and you for sure are going to be, any of these methods you're going to use, you're going to spend some time dialing it in. Because you're going to notice differences, and you're going to want to, it's. It's a natural thing. But yeah, it's an incredibly complex plant. It's unbelievable. When I started using the press, the different ways of the rosin, just from different strains, nothing, just a different plant. It's just so dramatically different. And
we had someone else in chat ask about the differences between like commercial stuff and not worrying about, and smaller people not worrying about finishing times. I know that you actually offer, when you do have your seeds, a pretty diverse background on all of your seeds. You get a whole, lineage on what was crossed with what to make all the different ones that you used. Anything that you are aware of in terms of background, it's all on that little info sheet that you give, along with finishing times, a whole bunch of other great info. So that's definitely one thing that if you do end up getting seeds from Mr. Green Jeans, he does go out of his way to give you an enormous amount of information about each cultivar. Do you want to touch on that? Because you do a lot of documentation, a lot more than a lot of people.
I think it's really the most one of the most important things. The information, that you're getting, the pedigree. That's kind of the whole thing, in the sense that, can, and also to, give you, what an idea of where you want to go, and stuff like that, what direction you're gonna breed in. Because I'm assuming that, that anybody who gets my seeds is going to want to either find a unicorn, or create a unicorn strain, or cross it with something that they have, or whatever. And so I like to try and figure out how to make seed batches for quite a few years. I've been doing that at least 25, 30 years, trying to engineer seed batches that are really exciting. That I noticed, like when I planted those, I was like, whoa, that where you're like I said, like likely to find something like a unicorn, an amazing plant. And it's possible to engineer seed batches like that, that where there's wonderful variation, no hay, no bad plants, bunch of really good and variation there too. I think that's yeah, it's really exciting stuff to me. I mean, like I said, I like to, I'd like to sell seeds that are the ones that I like to grow. You know what I mean? Those like,
I know in your cherry bomb, you have quite a bit of like the flowers are purple and the rest of it's green, which is like a super cool contrast in a lot of the phenos. Do you want to touch on maybe some of the other stuff that you've done down some of those funkier traits?
yeah, I mean that's the funny thing is I'm colorblind, right? And it's actually really couldn't see those pink and the red pistils, and I knew they were there. I knew there was color there, but I couldn't really make it out myself, and I'd have to go and ask somebody, and I'd say, hey, is this, and so. But thankfully, those traits, I kept it all in there. I knew it was in there, and basically, Gas, when he got a hold of it, he, selected it more so that the traits of the red pistils are more, maybe in the batch of the seeds that he sent me, I'd say probably maybe almost 20% of the females probably had the red pistil trait, which is so cool. Fantastic. Yeah, it was great. I mean, I didn't have cherry bomb for quite a few years, I think for 4 or 5 years. And then when I got the genetics back and the smell, and the taste and the effects exactly the same, I was just like, oh my God, that's so cool.
And I recently got some another lineage of cherry bomb from Cascadian grown. I got to kick those over to you too.
Totally. I would.
Shout out
That was one of the best decisions. I highly recommend to anybody. Don't hold genetics tight to your chest. That getting cherry bomb out there was really a good thing to do, because it not only ensured that when I lost it, that I was able to get it back, and that's the real deal. Like, as if you've been breeding a while, you've lost a lot more than you've still got. You can't plant all the seeds. You can't plant everything, every cross that you make. You don't get to everything. Stuff ends up on the back burner. Seeds go bad, even if you store them well. It's so you're always kind of, and I shouldn't complain about that, but yeah. It's just, but to be able to get the genetics back, I mean, that was so unbelievably. So I highly recommend anybody who's got anything. If you think it's really special, make sure you distribute it. Even if it's a clone, make sure you back it up. Speaking of which, do you guys still have that chill gel? Please, is it gone? You guys, yeah, didn't you still have it? I hope. You gotta get shit. Don't have it. That thing's gone. Oh my God, I can't believe it. That was such a wonderful clone. She was the nun. You couldn't pollinate her. She was unpollinatable. Oh. Don't want to lose any more genetics. Oh, it's terrible.
Is there any other I know with like Australian bastard cannabis is a pretty interesting structure. Have you found any other particularly funky structures or anything that you thought was maybe funky and ergonomical at the same time?
It's funny. I've got, and I wonder if it's going to. So far, it is. I've got a really a variegated plant. This grow that truly. And at first, I was like, oh, it's, with a really a couple of the leaves. Geez, do I have pictures of them? Super yellow. It looks like the kind of with the with there's a lot of plants that have the virus, a lot of house plants and ornamental plants that have that virus, which gives them the variegated leaves, the yellow.
The streaking, yeah.
You know what I mean? You've seen all kinds of plants with that. And geez, do I have it?
And there's the more solid one, which is usually the legit one when you test it out.
What is the
more solid color?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it's. Oh, wait a minute. Oh man, there they are. Oh please no. I think I found it. There we go. I don't know if I can show. Oh, there it is. I don't know if these will. Yeah, I don't know.
Send it to me.
Can't even. Yeah, I have to
throw it
send
up.
it. Not even gonna work like that at all. But yeah, like the beautiful combination of yellow and green, and so far it's even working. Even the clone is still showing it. Still, no, I thought that was gonna go away. I was like, that's not gonna. That must be a mistake, But the whole plant, and it's not exactly like chimera or whatever you call it, with one side of it and the other side of it. It's kind of blended, each leaf has sections. Some of them are really mottled, like sort of blotch, but the yellow parts are perfectly healthy. They're not it doesn't look like they're not like shriveling up or sick or anything. They're just devoid of chlorophyll.
What's interesting is I was at a grow and they had 4 different lights from 4 different companies. They had the same like 6 strains in each room, and or 4 strains. I don't remember exactly what it was, but one of the tables in one of the rooms really did not like that light, and the virus expressed just in that one light setting and not in the others. And the others, it was fine, yielded fine. You would never know there's a problem. And then in the other one with that particular light setting, it just hated it, and it caused that virus to express in that particular, cultivar. So it's real screwy how it ends up expressing and what it hates and what it doesn't in an environment.
Yeah,
I have seen light alone be the variable.
Yeah. Well, if it keeps, I mean, I expect it to go back to revert back to totally green at some point, but so far it's not doing it. And I'm like, whoa, that's pretty interesting. And then of course we've talked before about twins and stuff like that. I think I had a twin recently. Yeah, one of these was, and
you had one that was like 80% twins though, didn't you?
Yeah, a whole seed batch, exactly. I had a seed batch of White Wizard that had a really high percentage of twins.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And I didn't have clones of the mother and father, so it was just the one seed batch, and when they ran out, they were gone. But it would have been cool if that's one of those things where you're like, wow, I wish I had a clone of that mom and pop, because you probably would have been able to crank those seeds. They would have always had that percentage, you know what I mean? It's like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not something that you hear very often in terms of twins.
That's what you got to really keep an eye on your plants, man. And they, cannabis is like hard to look at too. It's not easy to look at. It's a very complex plant. It really takes a long time. I really recommend people to just sit your chair down and just with seedlings, when you got a bunch of seedlings, you planted a bunch of seeds and you're trying to, start looking at them early. Don't wait until they all flower, like get to know them. Takes a long time. There's a lot to look at and a lot to see. And, I was thinking about this whole CO2 thing recently. This breathing on the plants, man. They just, it's very important to breathe on your plants. If you think about the parts per million, like your breath is something like 14% carbon dioxide, right? And the atmosphere is only 400 parts per million, or 300 and something parts per million. And that is a difference of something like 40,000 times. So your breath has got 40,000 times the carbon dioxide in it that there is in the regular concentration in the air, which is why your plants love it when you breathe on them so much. That's their primary fertilizer. All that other shit, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, that's way down the list, right, Steve? The big one
Carbon
is
definitely high up on
carbon
those.
is the main thing right there. So when you're breathing on your plants, I swear, I've been noticing it lately, last couple of years. You can tell they just love it. Like, hey, here comes the boss. He's gonna breathe on us again. So yeah, when you sit there and you look at your plants, they especially like it, when you're looking at all the seedlings. The females are all flowering at the end, and it's like a beauty pageant at that point. They're all showing off. And you're breathing on them. Sorry, man, I'm going off.
Oh, that's fine. Sit there and just tell your plants bad jokes just to get some breath on them.
Anything, exactly.
Bust out your terrible rap lyrics and whatever
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
Wasn't there was that couple that were like the whitest people on the planet that got busted for crypto scamming in New
Really?
York and like karaoke them. Anyways, I don't remember their name. They're really bad though. They're like epically bad.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. Shit, it'll come to me after we get out of here. I'll remember that. But I know exactly who you're talking about.
Somebody says blow them kisses. Yes. You can blow them
Yeah.
kisses if that's what you want.
Yeah.
Any other advice for new growers?
Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. Can't think of any. Yeah, always just start those seeds. I mean, I was crazy for starting. I had no room, and I started 100 seeds. I mean, if I can do it, you can do it. I mean, the thing is, the seeds are or getting the plant. You'll make the room. The people always say, I gotta wait until I get. It's like having kids or something. You're not really ready. You think you need this and you think you need that to be ready, but you don't really know until they're there. The same thing is true with plants. You just start the seeds. You don't even need the lights. I mean, you do need the lights, but you'll get them. You know what I mean? You'll get them once you get the seeds going. You'll get other things will fall into line. And yeah, home growing. It's it's what big Canna is totally scares in every state. Recently they've obviously been more and more. I think it seems like trying to prevent home growing. There's more and more laws coming in. Trying to with recent. I think more of the recent states that have been legalizing. The big cannabis businesses. They recognize that home growing is their number one enemy. That's the thing that it gets them. And frankly, I think we all arrive at a point where we realize that, and you don't have to be I'm not a lot of people here, a lot of people watching this grow better than I do. I just grow well enough to support my breeding habit, and it's very easy to grow stuff that's way better than what you're going to get in the dispensary. Especially if you're willing, like I said, a little extra couple of weeks in the flowering time. You don't care about that, and consider it a badge of your skill too. That you're able to flower a longer flowering period. And yeah, just start those seeds. Everything else will fall in line, or get some clones. Clones are absolutely fit.
I think it's also too. A lot of people have a hard time getting seeds. Like we're spoiled, but like we have more seeds than we have lifetime left to grow. I know I certainly have more seeds than I have lifetime left to grow, and I'm sure that you have more than I do. But
Terrible.
you know, how do people get seeds if they're just getting started? Obviously, save anything that you find, label it, put a date on it, and make sure you do all of those things when you're seed saving. I think I wish I had saved and labeled, some of my early seeds I gotten early on.
Yep. I think the first chance you get when a lot of times when you buy seed packs and things like that, there are maybe only a dozen seeds in there or whatever, but very often what I try to do is try to make a lot more seeds with that first batch of plants. If you think that's good genetics and that's the direction you want to go, and those are good, they're good. 12 is, I would try to use at least 4, 6, 8 of them to make a whole pant load more seeds, try to make 100 seeds, and then grow at the second run, start with a whole lot of them. And that way you'll immediately jump up. It really is true that selecting from a large number of plants, not all the time. It's not like it isn't a hard, fast rule, because some seed batches are not really variable enough. And, you can see pretty much everything you need to see with 10 or 20 seeds. But it's still, there's other reasons to grow out a lot of seeds. Like I said before, to be able to observe, you're going to see everything falling into groups. You're going to see categories of stuff. And it's easier to see that stuff when you have a lot of plants. So
The other thing I would say too is if you end up with a ton of seeds, give away a bunch of seeds. Like,
oh yeah,
if you have a ton of seeds, like I do, and a bunch of people I know do, give away a bunch, right? Like, you're not going to do it as people are like, man, if I just had a couple of seeds, I get started growing. Boom. Here's 10 seeds. Go here. I just gave you 4 different strains. Go grow them, and you tell me how you like them. And that be that Johnny Appleseed for people, because a lot of people would get into this if you just give them enough seeds to get started. A lot of people do. I've had a couple of different times where I've hosted different seed swaps, and I was the only one that brought seeds, but that was fine. And especially in Oklahoma, people just didn't have it. But we had a bunch of little local people that were had never shown up to an event before, that just, hey, they had an opportunity to get some seeds. So if you can be that Johnny Appleseed in your local community, do that. Organize a way to do that, and whatever level or capacity is comfortable for you, and make that happen for people, because you can open up the world that all of us enjoy to a whole new group of people.
Yes. And that's another reason to make a lot of seeds is even you think, well, I'm never going to get around to growing out these 1,000 seeds, but if I pass them out, if I give them out and distribute them around, a lot more of them will get grown than if I hoard them myself. And that really counts for a lot.
Not only that, but they might do like what you did with the blue hash, and find some really amazing traits in it that were even better than the stuff that I had worked on. And you might find someone that susses out some other cool stuff that you didn't even know is in that line.
Yes.
Also, welcome West Engine as well.
Oh yeah.
Big up, Potent. Big up, Mr. Green Gene.
What's up?
Longtime fan, Mr. Green Gene, of your work. And when you used to be more of a regular here on the show, I feel like I already know you just from your past visits on the show and stuff. So
totally. I should be. I'm gonna try to be here more often. I gotta.
I'd love to get you on the Wednesday show too. It's a little different format. I think you'd have fun.
Absolutely.
Nice.
I lost my train of thought.
Sorry I'm so late. I had a hell of a time getting my daughter to sleep there. So
lunch can aggro, and that's what it is. We had another question, which was, is it worth bothering with weird stragglers?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how many plants you have. I almost I would call, of the seeds that I just now got from Steve, the Durban. I would call this male. I had I think I got 3 females and 1 male, and the male was definitely, in my opinion, a straggler. And since I didn't really have anything to compare to. I only had the 3 females. Kind of depends a lot on, what else you've got. And in that sense, like if I'd had almost you would say, well, you only had that 1 male. Why did you get rid of it? I did get rid of him because he was super straggly. That's exactly what he was, in my, estimation. He was like, and he never really, so, but if you've got a big batch, if you've got a bunch of seeds, then absolutely get rid of anything that you would consider to be a straggler. And that's another reason to plant more seeds. For example, that's what I did with the first couple of generations after I crossed Quirkle and the Triple X, because the Quirkle had these wonderful traits that I did like, but then there were these, hothouse flower ones that were I guess, like wimpy and, cantankerous. And so they had to, so, I was looking out for them. I already knew. So I planted a bigger batch. I started with more, saying, well, how many do I want? I'm gonna get rid of all these stragglers. So it could have to do with how many you know what I mean? If you only have the 4 plants, like I did, only had the 3 Durbans and the 1 boy, generally you probably maybe wouldn't want to get rid of it. But for some reason, I just went with my gut instinct and got rid of him anyways. What can I say? I don't know. But yeah.
What you gotta do sometimes.
Sometimes you just
know. You just know. You gotta trust that the inner voice in you that tells you.
I just knew it. Yeah, I just knew it. And he was gone.
So obviously your cherry bomb's the one you're most famous for. What's your favorite thing? What's your favorite second thing, or what's your favorite personal smoke?
Oh, I don't know. It changes. Recently, let's see. Oh yeah. So I had this really old Jack Herrera clone that I've had around forever, over 20 years now, I think it is. And she breeds really nice. And I crossed her with a Feijoa Kush male. And I was calling the cross Pineapple Jack, but it's not really pineapple in the sense that Feijoa is pineapple guava. It's not actual pineapple, but it's a type of guava that people call pineapple guava.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, but that pineapple Jack, so from the male Feijoa Kush crossed into that female Jack Herrera. The best plant out of that, I kept the number 5, the PJ5. I've had that around for not very long, about a year and a half or 2 years ago. Maybe I grew the seed out that I selected that one from. And it's like, wowee. So
And what's it smell like?
Oh, it's got the original, very much the what you remember of the Jack Herrera.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of sort of the Feijoa Kush is a little bit more indica berry, like a berry indica kind of thing. And all that is in there. The original, the old Jack has got a lot. It's very complex, and it's got a lot of wonderful smells, terpenes. One of the things that stands out of it is kind of a liquor, or maybe a licorice kind of a smell.
Yes, I would definitely agree. That's a Jack Herrera I've tried before.
Yes.
And
Right.
I always felt very uplifting weed. I always it was kind of weed I forgot I was high on, and I feel like I could solve all the world's problems, and then be like, holy shit, you're just high. Just calm
very
down.
energizing. Yes.
Yeah, really good weed. Really
good. And the cross with that with it crossed with the Feijoa Kush is just really, it's great. It smells and it tastes, and And the resin is not real sticky. It's like kind of it's not exactly a greasy, oily resin, but it's more of a, I don't know, it's kind of, I guess it's a slippery, almost like a, yeah. So I guess it is kind of an oily resin.
I know exactly the oily trichomes you're speaking of. Like,
Yeah, and
yeah.
it feels when you rub it, it's not super sticky. It's not going to glue your fingers together at all, and it's but it's not the real oily kind. Like if you roll a joint, like the resin just runs up the joint super far and gets all the ends all brown, brown on the inside. Not that. That's like the.
No, it's kind of
that's
the opposite of when you get that sandy, gray, very beach sandy kind of trichome.
the
You know?
opposite of that.
Yeah, it's kind of the
Yeah,
exact opposite.
yes. Yeah. There's just there's that's the whole thing. I mean, the whole thing of the different types of resin, the different ways that they feel, different ways that they smell, stuff like that. That's a huge it's a big, you can go on about that. I feel like the very sticky resins are very that's like what we used to get. That seems like an old sort of Afghani, the old hash weed trait. Real glue your fingers together. It's like yeah. Yes. Yeah, so that's probably been my recent most favorite, but I can see some of these ones that I've just started, these recent seeds that I've started, some of these ones coming up are going to be like, oof, wow. It's going to be some fun ones, fun plants in there. The double, telling Steve before, double back crossed Blackberry Kush. That's DJ Short. And that's really good indica. But very small, tiny, not very large flowers. A couple of them had large flowers. So I have, I guess I only get about 6 females of those and 1 male. So I'm going to inbreed. I'm going to cross brother and sister of this generation, the double back cross generation. See where that goes. See how those turn out. Because I haven't messed with indicas in a long time, over 20 years. So been getting back into it recently, trying to.
And what brought you to it initially? Was it just wanting to produce your own seed, or a necessity to produce your own seed, or did you see things that you just said these have to be together? What was it?
It's a lot, like when in the beginning, first starting to breed, like originally in the 70s, for example, when I made Triple X, that was exactly a necessity. I had a female, like a Afghani hashweed female plant, and nothing to cross it with. And then I got a male, a plant that a friend of mine brought a clone back from Jamaica for me. And when when that plant flowered, that turned out to be a male. So I had these two, female over here and male over here. That was, that was exactly what that was, a necessity. But that's how Oreo was made too. That's how recently, just what a stroke of luck. Oh my God. That plant came along to remind me how important a clone is, and to save an F1, a cross between 2 unrelated strains, and how special something like that can be. Very difficult to create a strain with it, difficult to breed it in such a way as to make it into a stable strain or something like that. Not impossible, I'm saying, but I did actually mess with it a lot, and I pretty much gave up with it.
So how rare is that Oreo? Was it like one in 1,000, one in like.
No, it wasn't rare at all. It was only I think it was 1 out of 3. I think we only had 3
Really?
female plants, so it was unbelievably lucky, right? Unbelievably lucky. And it was also a necessity cross because the mother, it was my friend who's from South Africa, who brought seeds of Durban poison from there. He lived in Durban, and we crossed that with the SS, with that strain that I don't know what it was. A friend of mine gave me the seeds for it. Her brother was a grower in Germany, a German, so I always called it the German strain. I didn't know what it was. And I used the male of that to cross into the Durban poison to make the Oreo, because we only got, I think the Durban poison seeds that he had, I think we only got 2 females. We're the only ones germinated. Then we crossed that with I crossed that with the SS. And then I gave this to my friend. He grew them out. And I think he only ended up, whether he only started a small batch or I forget exactly how it went. Because this is going back, Oreo's good 15-year-old plant by now, at least. Yeah, probably 15. And yeah, so it was just incredibly lucky. I mean, it was just she wasn't even from a big selection at all, which is, again, like, wow, the luck. And she was actually quite different than I think there were 2 sisters, or there's only each one of them were both small grows. Even the original one where I crossed with the SS, used the SS male to cross into the pure Durban poison. And so Oreos 50-50, whatever this German strain SS on the male side and Durban poison on the female side. And wowie zowie. It's like, first time, Oreo's just like from another planet or something. Plant is so unusual. And people, first time you grow it, it's like, what? It grows really vigorously, it grows super fast, but it's kind of a little bit sensitive, it's a thin leafed sativa. You got to be really careful not to overfeed it when it's going into flower, and in flowering I don't think it can store any nutrients, is my theory. I think I kind of learned, I think Oreo, and I'm not sure if this is true or not, maybe other growers can, if they have similar experiences, but it seems to me like the thick sort of leathery leaves of indica plants, indica dominant plants, are better at storing nutrients. And that when you get over to the sort of thin leaf sativas, they can be easier to overfeed, or they get more grouchy if you give them too much food. Seems to me like, anyway. So yeah. Oreo. Total luck, Always keep an eye out for, you never know when an amazing plant is going to come along from any place, any cross, any conditions. There's no telling. Got to be ready to see that plant too. That's the thing. I remember thinking after I discovered Oreos, like, wow, I'm glad I've seen this many plants in the past, that I was able to recognize how special she was right away. It was like, whoa, I never seen a plant like that before. Yep.
What about any soil mix tips? Is there anything that you tried and you're like, man, I'll never do that again, or anything you're like, man, I gotta have this in all my batches?
Well, I think for sure the having some kind of fungal activity in your soil is obviously very important. and it seems to me like even a little bit of compost, I I generally compost all my kitchen waste and everything like that. So I've always been doing that. And regular compost that it's made in a pile and stuff like that outside usually has a good deal of fungal stuff going in there. It's fungi things going in there. And I've noticed a lot of times small amounts of that really goes a long ways. I don't know. I think I use probably an old time. I'm probably a blood and bone meal kind of person. I like to use kelp meal when I can get a hold of it. If I'll use any of those kind of fish products. I probably don't feed much. And soil mix wise, I definitely mix a more drainy mix. I use sand, silica, because there's silica in it. And I can tell you that cannabis plants definitely eat sand over time. The sand will even disappear because I guess their roots are breaking it down, and maybe parts of it are being consumed or whatever, but it it goes away. And yeah, I like a good drainy mix. I like a mix that has gravel in it, even stuff that the water goes through easily. I think cannabis likes that too. I think a lot of the mixes that are made with a lot of organic matter, Fox Farm and those things, I think plants like that stuff, and those actually do have a great deal of fungus kind of stuff going in them. But I think usually they benefit from adding more drainage material given it. So if you get one of these rich mixes of soil with a lot of redwood bark and whatever it's putting in there these days, I think putting in making good drainage, that I think that's important for me. I always do that. And I like to repot plants a lot too. I think that the more you repot them, the faster they grow.
Well, the mycorrhiza was established on the existing roots in there, so they just get inoculated even quicker, and so
Yes,
it's actually effective the second time and the third time, more so than the first time.
yeah,
I would say.
yeah. The only reason why I've actually messed around a little bit with aquaponics in the sense of, even I was growing tropical fish. I was into tropical fish when I was a kid, and my grandmother, got me into. We always used the water for the plants and things like that, and so I even set up a DWC setup. It was around 20 years ago, and when I had a really nice big fish tank with a bunch of big fancy goldfish in there, and I ran the entire DWC. I ran a clone all the way from beginning to finished flowering in a 3-gallon DWC bucket, and I used nothing but water from the fish tank. It worked fantastic. Worked wonderfully, really well. It was excellent. Yeah, it was excellent.
It's just another level of microbes you're able to add to your plant, and the microbe expression just helps the terpene expression so well.
It grew fantastic. And the only reason why I've always, and then go back to, if I was commercially growing and I was just growing from my own head, I would absolutely use a method like that. The only reason I don't promote anybody using pot containers and soil, except it's pretty easy. It's easy, but I don't know if it's easier than aquaponics. It's definitely easier than hydroponics, than like chemical hydroponics, but some aquaponic methods might be pretty easy too, because it's getting pretty organic. And a lot of times, any organic method, the idea that organic growing is harder, I don't buy that really. Generally, I think it's easier. I think
I would tend to agree. A little more work up front, but
should be. Well, more knowledge. You need to know more to be a good organic gardener. But
Yeah,
you
you need
know,
to know more, but it's a lot of it doesn't go off the rails as fast.
Yep. Yeah,
no,
exactly.
It's the better way to put it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, so no, I was surprised by how easy that was that they did. And DWC is pretty cool, but there's some limitations because of hard to get enough oxygen into the water. I was able to do it pretty well, but I could see how there could be some problems there with that. And I don't know, but anyway, as far as using fish water for nutrients, oh my God, you know, fantastic. No
I was
question
just
about it.
talking with an aquaponics guy that works out here in Oklahoma, and they had a patch of property that they've been working on, and 10 acres of it they sprayed aquaponic nutrients 2 years ago. Or no, it was last year. They sprayed it last year,
Mhm.
and it's a hay production field. So, and then they had another 100 acres field, and it's been a drought here and everything else in Oklahoma. It's been not ideal conditions. It's super hot, so it's been, you know, not very good grow conditions. So the 100 acres, they got, I think it was 38 bales of hay, which is like really bad for 100 acres, right? And then on the 10 acres that they sprayed with the aquaponics, they got 46 bales of hay off
Wow.
just those 10 acres. So they got more production off those 10 acres they sprayed one time with the fish waste from an aquaponic system than they did from the, and that was an application rate of 75 gallons per acre. So it's not even like it was crazy. You know, this is totally realistic for someone to just have a aquaculture barn and produce this. So it's, you know, and that's an insane difference in production. I mean, you'd be looking at, you know, 370, you know, bales of hay if you had done that on that 100 acres. So
Yeah. No, I like I said, if I was growing for personal consumption or a commercial method or whatever, I would, you know, the only reason why I still use the containers and the pots is because breeding, because of being able to fit the plants into the small space and, you know, arrange them, you know, when they're still in their containers and everything. It's only that. It's the only reason I still do that. Other than that, you know, I would I highly recommend anyone to grow with fish water. In my experience, it was tops, and it was obviously an organic method in the sense that it was a much less complex than balancing. You know, I was watching my friend at the same time, my friend from Durban, the African friend, and he was trying to balance, you know, his hydroponic methods, his chemical hydroponics. That's hard, you know, and I would just put in the fish water in and watching the plant grow, you know, it's like so easy. And but I could see also there could be, you know, aquaponics, you know, since hanging out with you guys and everything, I could see that, for example, getting a lot of food into getting, you know, getting the nutrient level up or whatever, which I don't know with cannabis, maybe it's not all that important. I mean, I've never really been a big feeder. I could see what would be important with some vegetables, you know, growing tomatoes and peppers and stuff. Then you need, you know, maybe you need.
healthy cannabis is going to produce those terpenes and cannabinoids more.
But don't you think it'll still produce the terpenes and the you know, even if it's not, I don't know if it has to be healthy.
Peak levels at least.
I'm not suggesting, you know, like starving the plant or I'm just saying that
No, sometimes that's good. You know, if you're chasing down some of the different cannabinoids, those are very much tied to specific stress hormones.
probably.
I know some of this. I just can't say more than that.
Good. Okay. But yeah, I've noticed that it plants. I've noticed over the years that generally a plant that's not starved by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, just maybe fed just plants always seem to be healthier and happier if they're just fed just that right amount. You know what I mean? Like Oreo is a good example. It doesn't, doesn't tolerate the extra food very well. Seems to stress it out, and then the leaves get all funky looking at the end. And, maybe I just look. Maybe it's
Oh
just
yeah, and
like,
those wedding cakes and a lot of this newer polyhybrid stuff is super, super hungry. Like you
really.
gotta feed the shit out of it to keep it to actually plump up and to keep the color on it.
Yeah.
And so the wedding cake, especially, and some of these other ones I've noticed in particular.
Huh. What do the leaves look like on those? Do they have sparse leaf canopy? Or
Well,
small leaves?
the two lines I worked with had two different distinct phenos. One was a more chunkier, purpler, more diverse terpene profile. The other one was much more sativa-y in structure, but much more heavy on trichomes all over the plant. So like trikes on the stalks, trikes on the leaves, trikes on the calyxes, trikes everywhere.
Yeah, those are cool. And a lot of times, plants like that, you'll see it on the males as well. See that same kind of structure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the reasons why I think if you're really hunting out males, take a clone, flower it out, and then run it like another 4 to 6 weeks after it's dumped, and see what it does on the trichomes, because
That's a
that's
really
going to
great
give you
select.
a really good preview of those trichomes, because those are going to finish off the same way that a female would, and you're going to have that same, it's going to be less concentrated, but it's going to give you a really good idea of what that can do.
Totally. That's a really good suggestion. I've definitely noticed that males are more advanced in flowering, that they get their smells get better. And yeah, you do, it's good to give yourself to go in there with a clean palate to smell the males, because they're less, they smell subtle, you know what I mean? Sometimes it can be in your face. Sometimes they're very strong. But other times you're looking for something, that a smell that's not that strong, So if you come out of the female room, and you're full of all that, and you're sticky and everything, then you can't smell the males, You have to go clear your palate, go outside or something like that for 5 minutes, come back in, smell the males. Yeah.
When I get sticky, I need to clear my palate.
The what?
So when I get sticky, I often need to clean my palate.
Clear that palate. That's right, dude. It's so easy to get, it's like the room gets so full, and you're like squeezing your way around the edges of the room. You're like trying to get around this one plant. It's like just smearing across your face. It's like, oh, God.
Have you seen a big difference in like the dominant chemovar profiles, the terpene profiles, across from, the 70s and 80s to now?
That's a really good. I mean, just going on. I think there definitely are things that we've lost, and for example, we don't really seem to have the roadkill skunk anymore. And maybe there's some kind of interesting, like spicy kind of things that smells like the things like that are really hard to talk about. I mean, I guess if I knew the names of the terpenes and exactly what they smell like, but a lot of times, what it's like, and you get it complicated. It's really hard to describe, for example, the smell, what kinds of things are going on with Oreo, because it's real complex. There's like something funky. They're very, that's a classic example of something sweet and nice probably in there, but also something really funky and kind of yucky, like a mixture of those. And it can be really hard to tease out like what it exactly is you're smelling and tasting. I feel like Cherry Bomb has it's still got whatever it had then. And I've noticed a lot of other people, older friends that are older, people that smoked cannabis in the 70s or whatever. Very often when they try some cherry bomb, they're like, oh wow, man, this is like 70s weed. So yeah, I mean, I think that is really interesting. I think we've lost that roadkill skunk. It's really not there. There's still remnants of skunk in a lot of stuff, and but not really the real gassy roadkill. I don't. I remember, some plants that I remember that I had in Brooklyn, probably in sometime in the late 70s. Some some very petroleum plants that smelled, the diesel. There's remnants of that, but it's not quite as, as kind of poisonous smelling. And it's hard to say. I mean, you question yourself. You're like, is that just my memory of it? Was it, maybe I'm just thinking it was that special. But I don't. But I think those of us can remember, are in agreement, for example, that we don't have the roadkill. We don't have the roadkill anymore, really, or maybe.
Well, also, like, it makes sense on why, because that was one of the hardest things to block from a carbon filter, right?
Yeah.
Anything that was crazy stanky was a problem because you couldn't grow it stealthily, and if you couldn't keep it, on the DL, like, that was not a good strain to grow. Like, that was a liability.
Yep. I swear they still have.
Wes knows all about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wes, your mic is muted or not working or something.
Yeah, I got to mute in two places.
There you go.
Double mute myself. Yes, no, I have. Yes, the smell definitely. Even the worst cops can find it at that point. So. Yeah.
We had a bunch of fun stories about that kind of stuff yesterday on Dat Smoke Show, which is our other show on Wednesdays. Check it out.
Yeah, man.
DAT Smoke Show.
Yeah, man.
What about you, Mr. Green Jeans? Have you had any fun or crazy, interesting stories on this crazy industry that is cannabis?
Let me see.
We were sharing stories yesterday of times we almost got busted.
Oh, almost times of almost getting. Oh my God, yeah, I remember in New York City, sometime in the 70s, when I had and the fire department, but they didn't come upstairs. They were called. And I was lucky enough to be downstairs with my dogs, walking my dogs outside when they rolled up. Somebody had called them because I had Mylar, like standing gobos, like freestanding panels with Mylar, and I would move them around. At the lights, the HI. This was back in the, I had some of the very first 1,000-watt, metal halide lights and things like this, and I had two of them. I think I had a high pressure sodium and a metal halide, but then I had these Mylar panels around them that they were just floor standing, and when the wind or any movement in the loft, there was a loft building, 12-foot high ceilings, 2,000 square feet, and the panels would move like this, and it created this on the windows, created this like flashing kind of light that I suppose could have looked like flames or something, and somebody must have called the fire department. And luckily I was downstairs with my dogs. They didn't come busting into the building and rolling all the way up to the fourth floor where we lived. And I just thought, and I was like, oh no, those are my, and I actually did have fish at the time too. We were breeding Siamese fighting fish, bettas. And, and I was like, oh, those are my fish tanks. I got a whole collection of fish. Talking to firemen. Took a couple minutes of convincing. They were a little bit concerned. And I was like, yeah, man, I have the silver, he told them it was Mylar, but I said, I have the reflector things behind the fish tanks. It always looks like that. So they drove away. But in those days, man, it would have been really bad to have been busted in New York City growing cannabis in 1978 or whatever. Would have been cool. So that was the sacrifices we made. That's so great these days, flying below the radar. It's been great for the last 15, 20 years, even 20 years ago, it was getting all relaxed and cool. But yeah, 70s in New York, I was paranoid.
It is still strange because I travel around a lot too, and it's so weird going to I had to go to Texas on Tuesday, and it's so weird to go back to Prohibition land and have to remember not to say certain things and not to bring certain things with you, and all the silly stuff that comes along with going to Prohibition land. Yeah, it kind of is you it's one of those things where you only have so many days a year you have to deal with that shit.
Yeah,
and it's very jarring when you do.
It's so weird. Just right, you're in Oklahoma, and it's right over right there. Right.
Yep.
You guys are really close to. Is it Dallas? You can drive to, or no?
Yeah, I'm
Dallas.
3 hours from Dallas, maybe 4.
Yeah. Oof, that's
Well,
weird.
from here probably closer to 4. Yeah.
Very strange. Yeah. No, it's weird. It's times have really changed.
It's just strange that on one side of the river you can get arrested for it, and the other side of the river it's fine. That's just strange.
Yeah. And Oklahoma's one of the really good states too, I guess, probably, huh?
Well, they had an interesting take on it. They kind of just let everybody get a license, and however it shakes out. So
Yeah.
put
Do
a
you know?
pause on licenses for now, so we'll see how it pans out and how long they put a hold on licenses. But that could all end up getting overturned in November, so we'll see.
What about New Mexico? Don't they have? Didn't they do?
And they just
recently?
legalized. Yep.
And
What was interesting is the day before the Queen died, the Bermuda said that they were not going to legalize because the Queen said not to. I'd be curious to see if Charles is a little more down with weed. He's a little bit younger, like 20 years.
But they've had big commercial operations in England for decades, haven't they?
GW Pharma is based out of and they were the first people to get a legal import license in the US. They're a British company.
Huh. Yeah. So how does that work? I mean, if it's not legal, but those guys,
they bribed a lot of senators and politicians.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's how that worked.
That's some corruption there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I start going down that rabbit hole, I'm going to start ranting, and
yeah. Don't get me started. Yeah. Yikes. Yeah.
At any rate, can people get seeds from you currently or in the near future?
I'm going to be making some. I'm going to be making seeds in the near future. I don't really. I have some that I'm sure I do, and I just recently even, tested some of them and make sure they're viable. So I've got some. I do have some cool seeds. I don't really have. If somebody, just hit me on Instagram, Mr. Green Jeans Garden, all one word, Mr. Green Jeans Garden. Green Jeans spelled GENES, and I do. And if it's something that I think that I found out is only 75% germination rate or whatever, I'm just gonna kick a bunch of extra seeds in there. But I'm going to be making a lot of new. I'm going to be actually, and I do have some good seeds of some of these. The recent, those are only about a year old and they've been refrigerated. So some of the cool indica, like this Koji's Kush and stuff like that. That's some good stuff. And
It's also got a Green Jeans Garden at Gmail as well.
Yes.
I'm gonna get his latest lists.
Yeah. That's me. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, I've run a bunch of his genetics, and he's done a bunch of back crossing with a bunch of my stuff, and we've become good friends over the years since he's been on the show. So.
Oh, we're just getting going with this genetic stuff. We're only scratching the tip of the iceberg. I'm going to do some, talking about, I don't want to go off again, but sometimes you've got to consider for a long time before you make that first cross. That first cross can mean a lot. We don't have a male blue hash, and just have that one. But I really think that I know what to do with it. Sorry, what? Yeah.
I have some seeds from the original batch still.
That
I gave you, I think, and then I have a bunch of your blue hash from the different lines that you kicked me. So
the ones that I've already crossed with. I know
both. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Okay.
I'll kick some of that back to you too in the next round of goodies.
Perfect. Cool. Okay.
Well, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
How do people? Any other ways that people can find you?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The Gmail account and the Instagram. I should have had a thing that I could say. Sorry, but I'm going to be making. I'll be making a lot more seeds soon, and I'll get on the show. I'll be more. I won't be so difficult to find. I promise.
That's fine. Life happens sometimes. That's all.
I know. And we got to hang out some more, and I'll send you some more pictures. I was gonna take some today. I haven't even picked either one of those. The Jamaican, the Blue Mountain X Orange Hill. Send you a picture of those. One of them smells really nice. Like I said, dangerous. I don't know what that smell is, but it's dangerous.
Well, I'll make sure get you another round of stuff here soon to play with as well. What about you, Wes? How do people find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Wednesday nights over on That Smoke Show, DAT Smoke Show, and here, of course. And where's the best place for people to get a hold of you, Potent?
You can find me on Wednesdays at That Smoke Show. We're live at 7 o'clock Pacific, usually around 7:15. We're often late. Don't worry if we're not on time. And then you can also find me at thepestclass.com if you're looking for aquaponic living soil pest control courses. We have a ton of info, but we're always adding new pictures. I work with a bunch of different people around the world, so we're always adding new content to that. And also the APMedclass.com for our aquaponic cannabis course, where we have a whole bunch of awesome information for, over 7 days worth of content. We've had a bunch of really awesome reviews lately from a bunch of cool people, so definitely check that out. We put a lot of time into that, and we will be back again. We have next week, I believe Jordan Rivers is going to be our guest on Thursday. And then I'm probably going to be off for a week after that, just getting settled. I'm going to be traveling for 2 straight days. I'm probably sleeping for 1. So we might be off the week after that. And then we'll be back again the week after. But we will have a normal time when I'm in Thailand. We'll be, regularly scheduled programming in terms of starting times for this show. So don't fret. So, alrighty, thanks everybody for watching. I know we had a little bit of a late start there, but it's okay. And thanks again, Mr. Green Jeans, for joining us. I know it's been a fun ride the last couple of years, and we're happy to have you back.
Oops. Did I just? Whoop. Okay. All right. Cool.
We're still live.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Thanks. Thanks to you, Wessingen. Good hanging out with you guys.
Well, thanks everybody. You can find us on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, all the things.